This video is going to be all about timber storage. Recently, I built a wall and installed a set of double doors in front of the roller garage door of my new workshop, mainly to help stop noise coming in from the nearby busy road, but also to keep the heat in and to make the workshop more secure too. The plan was to use the space in front of that wall as timber storage accessible via the front roller door. And when I spoke about this in a previous video, back then I was planning to make my own heavy duty brackets to mount onto this wall to hold the timber. Now these would have been a great solution, and I'm going to release a second video showing you how I made them. But for my timber storage wall, I changed my mind. There were a few reasons why. Firstly, and most importantly, making about 50 brackets was going to take a fair amount of time, and I don't have much of that to spare at the moment. They'd also take time to fit. Dylan's come to say hello. They'd also take time to fit because each of the brackets would need to be mounted to the timber studding in the wall, and each would need to be mounted perfectly level with one another horizontally to make sure that they're supporting the timber equally. Also, once those brackets were mounted to the wall, they wouldn't be easily adjustable. So as my timber storage needs change over time, I wouldn't be able to reconfigure those brackets easily. Instead, I decided I'd try using a twin slot shelving system. I've used these in the past and they work really well, plus they can handle quite a lot of weight. I've seen people use them for timber before, but I've not really seen anyone doing it on the same scale as what I was planning. So this video was going to be a bit of an experiment. Will a twin slot shelving system, which isn't really designed for this kind of use, be able to cope with the ridiculous amount of weight that I'm about to load onto it? Will it fail? And perhaps more worryingly, will the wall itself that I built be able to cope with this amount of weight? We'll find out. I just want to talk about costs quickly. I did a lot of research on prices to find the cheapest, good quality shelving components that I could find, checking online from various retailers, as well as in places like Toolstation, Screwfix, B&Q, Wix, plus some local builders merchants. What I found was that for the quantity of components that I needed, Amazon worked out the cheapest. Toolstation was a close second, but what swayed me towards Amazon was that there were some reviews on the Toolstation website mentioning that the components that they sold were a little bit flimsy and could even be bent out of shape. There are lots and lots of different manufacturers of this twin slot shelving system, and I wanted one that was decent quality, so I thought I'd try out the Amazon ones, which are made by a company called Charles Watson, and I was prepared to send them back if I wasn't impressed with the quality. But actually, I was really impressed with them. They are very rigid, the steel is about 2mm thick, and I was happy to use them. And as they were the cheapest too, it was a win-win situation really. I'll leave some links to these in the description box below if you're interested. I ordered 9 2.4 m uprights, which were £6.79 each, and 46 370mm brackets, which were £2 each. So the total order was about £170. Each bracket which slots into the twin slot uprights is rated at a limit of 55 kilograms, which is quite impressive when you consider that the weight of the timber that I'm going to be storing on these brackets is spread among other brackets too. It seemed to me like it would be able to handle quite a lot of weight, but again, we'll find out. The first job was to install the uprights, and I decided initially to place them directly onto the damp-proof course, which is resting on the concrete floor, because that in itself should help to support some of the weight load that I'll be adding. And I didn't even bother trying to get the uprights level with one another at this point, and I'll explain why shortly. Then it was just a case of screwing it into the timber wall studs, and I could make sure it was plumb and continue adding more screws. Each 2.4 m upright has 6 screw holes in total, and the screw holes are about 45 cm apart. Then I could start adding the brackets. I then added a few lengths of the straightest timber that I could find onto the brackets, and this is where I could make any adjustments needed to get the uprights level with one another. My concrete floor seemed to be really quite good and flat, at least I thought it was anyway. As you can see here, one of my uprights on this side was about 7 or 8mm too low, whereas all of the others were supporting the timber perfectly well. So I just took the screws out of that one upright, used a wedge to lift it up to the right height until the bracket was in contact with the timber, and then reinstalled the screws. So I could start loading up all of my timber, some of which was in the workshop, still in boxes, and I'm trying to group the different types of wood together as much as possible to try and keep everything nicely organised. Whenever I came across anything that I couldn't identify, I took a few swipes with a spoke shave to reveal the wood grain. This here I think is oak, so this went with the rest of the oak. I also made sure to put some spacers in between each piece of timber to help the airflow around it, which should help prevent any moisture from potentially building up and help the timber to dry out evenly. I just used scraps of plywood for this. The rest of my timber and materials was all stored in a garage in Norwich where I used to live, which I've been renting for the past few years, and it took probably 8 or 9 trips in total to collect it all in my little van. I did that over several weeks, just taking a little at a time whenever I happened to be in Norwich, like on my way back home from a day at the office, for example. You can see here that I'm double stacking, sometimes even triple stacking the wood onto these brackets, and so far no issues at all. Here's how it looks fully loaded, and it's been like this for a couple of weeks now. I've kept my eye on things and haven't had any issues at all so far with either the twin slot shelving or the wall itself coping with the weight that I've added, so I can only assume that this is going to work just fine for my future needs. I couldn't fit all of my wood into this space though, so I've stored some of the slabs in our storeroom, which is basically an old single garage which is attached to our bungalow. I've got lots of slabs of beech stored in here, again with sticks in between so that the air can flow around it, and this is going to be a great space for drying out timber before I start working with it, because it's warm due to the boiler being in here and it's dry. This room is also where I store all of the items that I've made and are available for sale on places like my Etsy shop, including my pots of wax finish and various furniture, cat beds and stuff like that. I've also got a table set up over here with lots of recycled packaging materials where I can weigh and package up the items that I sell. I'm so happy to have this much space to store things, even though the bungalow itself needs an awful lot of building works and refurbishment. The amount of space and the potential here is what really made us want to buy this place. I'm also going to be storing some more timber at the very top of some of the internal walls in my workshop, where I can install some of the heavy duty brackets that I've made. And like I said at the start of the video, there'll be a separate video covering the build of these brackets, and I'll link to that in the description box if you're interested. In terms of storage of sheet materials, at the moment I've just got them tucked away in a corner of the workshop, and I still need to think about how I'm going to store these in future. Ideally, I'd like some kind of cabinet where I can store full sheets as well as smaller pieces, condensed down into as small a footprint as possible, and probably something with doors to keep the dust out too. But for now there's more important things to be getting on with, so that can wait for another day and another video. So that's about it for this one. As I say, the twin slot shelving system worked out really well. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe for more weekly woodworking videos. If you'd like to receive early access to my videos, exclusive content, free plans and cut lists, and a name credit at the end of my videos, you can do so by supporting the channel on Patreon, and there's a link to that in the description box below this video. Thank you for watching.